Hey guys, so welcome back to Inner Knowledge. So this is Chandra here, and today I've got a very special tarot card reading, and we're just going to use the initials here. Even though the name is relatively common, I just want to keep this a little bit, the topic matter is a little heavy, so I don't want to violate this person's privacy or anything like that at all. So we're just sticking with the initials. So this is for AS, and the question is, it takes us back to childhood and getting over some abuse and different things that happened. And it's about physical, spiritual, mental, and emotional abuse that happened to this person during childhood. So now, this person can't really tell if they're really kind of over the abuse or over all of it, or if they're just kind of wearing like a brave face, that kind of thing. So so as far as the perspective goes, we've got the cards right here. Actually, I went ahead and dealt these out just now. So the first card is everything is coming full circle back around. And that's what we see with the world. Not a bad card. It's in the Major Arcana. In fact, in this spread, we've got two Major Arcana cards. The first one here is the World. And so it's about going back and revisiting things from the past. It's about looking at things, but coming at things from a different perspective. We have a different lens and whatnot. So I can kind of give you a little insight into kind of the way this is working for you. So when we talk about the brave phase, am I really over this? Am I not really over it? What's happening is that I want you to kind of imagine, if you will, sort of like a journey. Okay, it's kind of like sort of like it would be kind of like just sort of this here path of life, if you want to kind of look at it that way. And of course, in life, we have these different chapters, different experiences or situations that we find ourselves in. Case in point, just to use kind of hypothetically here, maybe you live in a certain place now that you didn't live at before. And then maybe 3 years from now, you decide to move to another place. And so that's going to be a different situation for you. So moving could be like one of those changes that happens. Of course, as we evolve as human beings, from being a child into adulthood, young adulthood, and then into middle age, and then into like older age, we're experiencing things, and, different things are going on inside of us. So here's the thing. At certain points in our life, we're going to see things a little bit differently. And it just kind of naturally, this is sort of just a natural phenomenon. So like as a child, the way that you would perceive things and see things and experience things, once you become a little bit, you're out of the nest, you're a young adult, you're a young person, you still have concerns, you still have things that you have to worry about, but they're different. Now you're not under the thumb of someone else per se, so the parents or the situation that you find yourself in childhood, you're no longer bound by that situation. But with that not being bound by it and having a new circumstance, that comes a whole nother set of different challenges. So it could be like, now that you're a young adult or something, it could be that now you have to start paying rent, whereas before maybe you didn't have to pay rent. So having to come up with money every month to pay a bill, wasn't something you really had to concern yourself with. So now our concerns shift a little bit. In middle age, something a lot of people don't stop to consider a lot is that by the time you get to middle age, you may have parents or loved ones that are older. And now they're more reliant on you to kind of look after them or take care of them or see them into their later years and that kind of thing. And that could present a whole nother set of challenges. There's, of course, emotional challenges that go along with that, like especially if you come from a situation where like the parents or something were the abusers. And maybe like in young adult life, you say, well, I am done. I am completely done. And you make a conscious decision to erase these people from your life. You have nothing else to do with them. You've cut them off. And now you're going it alone. You're doing your thing, or you have a new set of friends. Maybe you fall in love with someone and you get with that person, you partner up, and now you have other people in your life completely different people that care more about you and kind of look after you. But what happens, like is maybe at some point you decide, well, I forgive those people. I just don't have anything to do with them anymore. But what if, something does come along and you find yourself in a situation where you're with that person again, those people, those abusers, but now you're able to do it kind of more from a detached perspective because, well, you've had enough years go by, you've had enough life experiences, and you start to realize, hey, you're in your 40s, maybe 50s, and you start to see that, hey, life is really short. We're really not on this planet that long anyway. Why harbor grudges, just because there's some sick people in the world, mind is sick and everything. Maybe we start to forgive a little bit, or even if we don't forgive, we're just not as close to it. So our affect, our emotional affected side of it is maybe not as much. No, maybe not. Maybe you are very emotional about it, even in the 50s, 60s, and you say, no, screw those people. I want nothing to do with those people. That's a real possibility. And, people do that. I talk with people and, that's another. Different people operate differently when it comes to their emotions and, their mental health and how they want to what decisions, they choose to make and that kind of thing. What's right for one person is definitely not going to be right for another person. And especially like, for example, I'm a monk and I do a lot of spiritual counseling and helping people with like spiritual direction. But a lot of that also transitions from things from the past, like emotional things or, well, things like this, for example, like where someone maybe been mentally, physically, sexually abused or something, and, they've maybe not dealt with it, or maybe they have been dealing with it and they're trying to like, just, get it behind them and just move on with life and just, but different people have a different way, different feelings, and they have different belief systems. And all of these things work in tandem in order to kind of predetermine what their decision-making would be, what's going to make them happy. Some people, for example, that grow up like in a narcissistic family where like a mother or a father or both parents maybe were very narcissistic, they really played a huge role on this person's life. And now this person is like totally like, I'm done with those people. I'm having nothing else to do with them. They were crappy to me. They mentally abused me, might have had money and stuff, might have had the nice clothes, this, that, and the other, but these people were garbage. These people were the most horrible people ever. And you might just say, look, I'm a bad person because of these people. And because of that, I'm not going to have anything to do with them anymore. And you write them literally out of your life. Now, there are people that do that. Now, that's not going to work for everyone. Some people, they say, well, you know what? I realize, they're coming from a world from their own vantage point. Maybe their upbringing had something to do with it. Maybe their life experiences. I don't know. Maybe it was just a chemistry in their brain from science or whatever. I mean, however you want to like kind of justify it or explain it to yourself is fine. You may say to yourself, okay, well, I don't agree with their behavior. I wouldn't personally wish that upon anybody. It really sucked, but I forgive them and I'm just going to kind of move on and, I'll forgive them and stuff. I mean, I'm just not going to take it personal. Like as far as the relationship goes, I'm just, they have this thing in narcissism, like gray rocking, for example, where you just kind of like dry to the person. So they don't get really a lot of narcissistic supply from you and that kind of thing. Anyways, there's a lot of other great YouTubers that have a lot of great content on that. Dr. Romney, for example, she has a lot of videos in that direction and stuff, and definitely worth checking out if you're interested in that. And so I highly recommend her. She's great. But that aside, so that kind of just gives you kind of an idea. Now, this world card, when it comes up, a lot of times what it is that we're going back around we're revisiting things from the past, but we're looking at them more or less through different lenses. It's sort of like if you've ever watched like, they sort of have a process when they're writing these novels and movies and putting together these scripts and different things. And it's a kind of a narrative, and it's sort of the way that narratives are put together. And normally it starts off in normalcy. There's a normal situation, or what is perceivably normal, defined differently for different people, whatever that looks like. And whatever that normal situation is, eventually something comes along and triggers an event or something that happened where they're no longer in that situation, that normal situation. Now they start to take this journey. And as they start to take the journey, they get some life experiences, and they start to get some things behind them. That takes me to the next card. Let me just go and pull that out of the thing. The next card is a magician card in your reading. And the magician card is sort of that card that's, okay, this is like about the journey a little bit, but this is letting you know that you have all the resources that you need to handle any situation. And that's what this card really represents. The magician is very magical in the sense that when you were, like in your question, your very question has everything to do with this card, which is really an important point to make here. It was talking about how we have the mental, the physical, the spiritual, and the emotional. So the mental is stuff from the mind. That's represented by the swords. Emotional is represented by the cups. It's relationships and different things. The spiritual, when we have the spiritual and stuff like that, a lot of times that has to do with our inner creativity and, kind of the way that we look at things. That's sort of a combination of all of these in a big way, because the spiritual does kind of play a role in the other avenues. We have the coin here, which is also about like being grounded, and that's foundational kind of stuff. Sort of like childhood, you're kind of sort of grounded, or hopefully on some level. Or maybe if you come from a traumatic experience or traumatic background, you're looking for some kind of normalcy in your life, some kind of a grounding. And that's what the Pentacles are, So like financial prosperity would be one way of kind of giving a sense of, just a grounded situation. You know that you're going to be able to take care of yourself moving forward. That kind of thing. Maybe not so much mentally. You may still have breakdowns. You may still have things from the past that come up. But at least that's kind of resolved one problem, and that's the financial side of things, which just make you feel a little bit more secure about your situation and give you a sense of empowered feeling. So money can make you kind of feel that way, or some people feel that way, not everyone. And then, as far as, the physical and stuff like that, again, that's the Pentacles. Pentacles are really about that grounded, sort of think of like Capricorn kind of energy and all. It's the sure-footed goat. These are the doers of the world, people actually taking action. And that also translates into the actual wand right there too. That's about the action or activities and stuff. So, it's a combination of all these things, that you kind of bring up. And we have, of course, the infinity sign and stuff like that. That's usually a sign of like, having just like the ability to keep carrying on, like keep transitioning over and over and over again as we cycle and make different loops in our life, like with this world card, like going from one chapter to the next chapter to the next chapter. In that, we're bringing with us those resources and things that we can utilize to help us. And then the last card that you have is this is really the Nightmare card. It's not a bad card, but it just seems like it really is. When you look at it, it's just kind of like, oh no. And of course, a lot of times where, especially where children are concerned and stuff, when I've done readings before, oftentimes, like especially in abuse type situations, this card tends to come up quite a bit. And, because oftentimes like abuse happens at nighttime, or happens like especially with like sexual abuse, people sneaking into rooms, and all this kind of crazy business. But that kind of bit aside, it just, you're always on edge. It's that feeling of always being on edge. If you make a noise, if you disturb this person, you just try to be as invisible as possible. And this is sort of that. Now, this is not the action. This is just that everything that happens, all the emotions, all the thoughts, all those things. And swords are emblematic. They're representing kind of these thoughts or these things. We thinking the worst thing could happen, and we're afraid, and all the worst things that could possibly happen. The potentiality for bad things to happen are right here. The good news is that when we do wake up, we realize, well, it was just a dream. It's not real. It's no longer valid, that kind of thing. And that's sort of in place with what we're doing. But to kind of get back on track here, I was talking sort of about that story. As you have these new experiences, as you get to this, eventually there's a climax. There's kind of like everything just kind of like falls apart for a minute. That's this card. But what we think is really the worst isn't really so bad after all, because what happens is immediately after that, something comes along. Like it could be like our well-wisher, it could be some help or a salvation, or something comes along that really kind of saves us from our situation, or kind of gets us out of that funk. and puts us back on a good solid ground again, gets us that foundation that I was talking about a moment ago back in place. So as far as like where things are at, where you're at with all of this, and I hope that this is kind of helping you on some level, it's that what's happening is that, yeah, no, what happens to a person and stuff can really be hurtful and psychologically damaging. And I don't know, honestly, if people really, truly ever do really recover from it, unless they really kind of get onto a different spiritual track and really just kind of like evolve into that. A lot of people don't or can't. I don't know what that is for sure. But I know that a lot of people have had situations, that you're speaking about, and they live their whole life, affected by the past and things like that have happened. But the good news is that what you do have is you have this sort of list coming around, looking at things, and now you're kind of asking this question, am I over this, or am I just blindsiding myself? What's really going on here? Like, maybe because you're not as emotionally attached as maybe what you once were. Like, well, obviously is what you were like in the moment. That period of time is gone, and now we're in a different chapter. But that is still part of the story, your life story. That's still part of it. If you think too much about the past, or you cling too much to that can definitely affect where you're headed in the future. And that's the reminder of this nightmare card here. Like, if you focus and dwell on like the worst things, like the worst possibilities and things like that, you may be in constant fear of things, and you may find some upsets, and you may not get to experience the best that life really has for you. But if you can look at your resources and understand that, hey, you know what, emotionally, yeah, I'm okay. Spiritually, I'm getting there, like I'm moving forward, I'm making the effort. As far as the mental goes and stuff like that, I'm working on my own mental psychology. I'm trying to keep a good mind about things. I'm trying to keep it positive, but every now and then things trigger. And here's the thing. Okay, here's maybe something that would be useful or helpful to you. I hope it is. I'm doing this from the heart anyway. I'm trying to help you the best I can. What I've noticed in working with people, if this maybe kind of gives you some insight here, is that often there's a moment of like, it's almost like PTSD. In fact, I'm not a therapist. I can't give that kind of advice or anything like that. I can give spiritual advice, but I can't give like psychological advice. But I have worked with enough people and enough psychologists to understand some of this, just what I've picked up or gleaned. But again, I would defer that you talk to like a professional if this is something that is more, if it goes beyond what I'm about to tell you. But one of the patterns that I've noticed, just being very objective, is that oftentimes people that have been in abusive situations, they do kind of get like they can live good lives, they can have a good positive experience, and they can have most of the time. But every now and then something comes along and it will trigger that PTSD, and they will flip out. And when I say flip out, I think like, I know like, what's it called? It's just like something is triggered in their mind. Something comes along and triggers it, and they will freak out, flip out, become, emotionally hysterical. And there's not really anything you can do about it until that time has gone, and then they've kind of gotten past it, and that moment is past. If you're with or around someone that's not that doesn't understand that situation or how to handle that kind of emotion, that raw emotion that emerges, then that person may be the worst. There may be some conflict, is what I'm trying to say. It may hurt relationships. It could have an impact in that direction. However, if you're with someone and that person tends to be very understanding, they understand that these PTSD moment type things can happen every now and then. They're willing to just kind of like, brush it off and just say, okay, this person's having a moment. Something has triggered this in them. I get it. not going to freak out. I'm just going to be there for the person. If I give them their space, that kind of thing. And when the time is right, when time is past, the person will get their psychology and everything will change back, and they'll get back on track, and things will start to progress forward again until the next situation happens. But this could be people that have been, traumatized, abused. Like I would say, war is sort of abusive to soldiers many times. They have these negative experiences. Maybe they have to murder people, or, they've seen their friends, people that they've grown close with, die, and they've experienced a lot of these. They've heard explosions and things, horrible experiences, abuses, tragedies, atrocities, all these kind of things that no human being should really ever have to experience, or hopefully experience. They might experience. And so then when they come home, they're just like, they have a good part of their time, they're fine. But every now and then something triggers that PTSD, and it's like they're right back in that situation all over again. And it's really, really painful in that moment. I mean, it's just like, and then you enter that fight or flight response. That's the old part of the brain, that amygdala back here, that just gets stimulated. And the minute it happens, all reason and logic, all that stuff just kind of goes out the window. And then it's just pure raw emotion and all that reaction that comes about from it. Now, I don't know, AS, if that is your situation or not. I don't know if those are the kind of things that you've maybe experienced. I pick up maybe that they have been on some level or to some degree. But finding ways of coping when those things happen, and knowing that there's a very real possibility that could happen at any moment. What would be the coping mechanism? Like, what type of things would you be able to do to just, and the people in your life, can you talk to them? Can you at least talk to them about the PTSD side of it? Because the PTSD, maybe if you can talk to people and say, look, I suffer from stress from things in my past. I don't really want to go there, but I suffer from things like that. And every now and then I have a moment. Some people might call it freaking out. And it's pretty horrific, and I'm not the person that and that you love and trust and everything like that. I'm just completely different. And when it happens, it happens. There's not a lot I can do about it. Certain stressors, certain things like that, set it off. So, if and when that happens, here's the best way to handle me in that situation. And you're basically training people on how to handle you when you're unhandleable, if that makes sense. And if you do that and people understand it, then that's a lot easier on them. It doesn't affect the relationships near as badly. And as you continue to move forward and progress, maybe those situations will diminish and lessen and reduce down. Until one day, maybe that won't be a situation that you have to face, find yourself facing whatsoever. And maybe that's the case now. Maybe you're at a situation now where you've become, emotionally strong enough, and maybe things don't set you off near as much. And so you don't have to revisit that near as much. And so you can have a positive life. You can move forward, kind of leave the past in the past, hopefully. And and just have a pretty good life. So that's kind of where I'm picking up with everything. But, all in all, basically what the reading is saying is that you're looking at things sometimes, like when you're going back and looking at the past, you're looking at them through different lenses. Instead of looking at them through the lenses of a child, you're looking at them through the lenses of an adult, which is completely different. Like, adults see something, an adult might be very protective of a child, whereas a child might feel very helpless, so there's a different way. One person may be like, if you harm my child, I'm coming after you, and you better run because, so you feel very much in a sense of empowerment, whereas the child would be helpless and, who's going to help me? They don't know who to trust. This is their guardian. This is their people, and their situation that they're in, and they just feel a complete sense of helplessness in them. And so when those emotions get triggered, they're going right back. It's called revivification. They're reliving those experiences in their mind, and they can cause some really raw emotions to come out. So it's, I wouldn't say, everybody's a little bit different in how they handle things. So anyways, I hope that this kind of helps you a little bit to some degree. There is going to be times in our life where we're going to look at events and circumstances and situations, especially things that have happened to us in the past, things that were unpleasant and unkind. And, you know, we're going to see them differently depending on the lenses that we're wearing. It's just like if you put on like those pink shaded glasses, you're going to see the world through rose-colored glasses, as they say. You're going to see everything is rosy and everything is nice. You put on the dark shades, you're going to see things a little bit darker. You know, you put on lighter shades, those night glasses, you're going to see like everything kind of yellow and more brighter, even in a dark setting. You know, and that's just kind of an analogy, you know, kind of way to look at this is how you look at things is going to determine how you're feeling about it ultimately. And, you know, I can't say for sure if you won't go back. Probably the chances are you will experience this thing, you know, have that revivification happening, and you probably have those kind of experiences again and again throughout your life, you know, just from time to time. And it could be a situation that, you know, like if you experience a death in the family or a hardship or something like that, those kind of things could possibly set this kind of thing off, cause you to go into a depression. You go back, you revisit these kind of things, and you're seeing them again through those negative lenses. If everything is going great in your life and life is great, and that seems like a far distant afterthought, yeah, you're not going to be nearly as emotionally affected, spiritually affected, you know, as you would otherwise. So I hope that kind of helps you a little bit. So if you can think of ways of like detaching yourself from the situation, kind of like looking at things more meta. And what I mean by that is see yourself seeing that situation. So now you're three people detached. So instead of this is the adult you looking at the child you, see yourself as I'm a different person looking at who I am now, looking back at myself from the past, and then see it from that vantage point. And if you do that, you're even further detached from the situation. So it's not going to affect you near as much emotionally. You know, it's not going to have that traumatizing effect on you. But again, things can happen in your life just in the course of living that can trigger back to those earlier childhood traumas. And that can have, really cause you to go into a depressed state of mind. It could cause your behavior to be irrational in the eyes of other people. And, so you just want to be kind of careful with that. Anyways, I hope that helps you. If you have any questions or anything, as your tarot coach, I'm always here for you. Guys, if you guys need a tarot card reading or you'd like to know how to reach out to me or get in touch or anything like that about anything, you can find that information in the description below this video. Anyways, much love and many blessings. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the channel. That really does help me out a lot. And of course, if you hit the bell notification when we come on, you'll get notifications of that. And then if you want, you can ask questions live while I'm on the air most of the time. Now, sometimes when I have several of these tarot card readings backed up, I don't even have the live chat on, which is the case right now, in fact. But when I do, usually like later when I'm not so pressed for time, yeah, I'd love to have chats with people and kind of find out what's going on with them. And then we can talk things out. And this always makes for some really lovely discussion. But guys, I love you all. Much love and many blessings. See you guys on the next episode of Indirect Knowledge.